Mary had always been the quiet kind. The kind of woman who never asked for anything, never demanded, never raised her voice. Her hands, now wrinkled and slow, had once cradled her children, folded laundry, stirred soup, wiped tears. She had built a home out of nothing, stitched love into every corner of their small house, and raised Michael with dreams bigger than her own. She never wanted much, just for her children to be safe, kind, and whole. But the world, she was learning, had a bitter sense of irony. It started as an ordinary morning. The sun crept in through the window, warming the dusty frames. Mary, in her worn housecoat, shuffled slowly across the hardwood floor, her joints aching from the same arthritis she never complained about. A stack of unopened mail sat by the front door, and she picked it up like always, flipping through the flyers and medical bills with quiet resignation. But one envelope stood out. No return address, just a formal seal. She furrowed her brow and sat down at the kitchen table, her hands trembling slightly as she opened it. The words on the page blurred for a moment. She reached for her glasses, and when the text sharpened, her stomach dropped. A life insurance policy, on her, taken out just 3 weeks ago, and the beneficiary, Michael, her only son. Her heartbeat faltered. She read it again. It wasn't a mistake. Her breath caught in her throat as if the air had turned heavy. The paper slipped from her fingers, landing softly on the table, but the weight it carried felt unbearable. She sat there for a long time, unmoving. Her mind spun in silence, piecing together moments from the past few months. How Michael had been visiting more often, asking about her medications, checking on her health in ways that felt oddly specific. How he insisted she take her pills even when she said she was fine. How he had asked strange questions about her will, about her house, about her doctor appointments. It all seemed caring until now. Now it felt calculated. Now it felt like a script. Her son, the boy she once rocked to sleep during thunderstorms, had quietly placed a price tag on her life, not as a gesture of security or protection, but as a cold investment, a bet, a plan. The pain wasn't just in the betrayal, it was in the complete collapse of the image she had held of him. The boy who used to cry when he scraped his knee was now the man who saw her as a paycheck waiting to clear. Mary didn't cry. She wanted to, but the tears wouldn't come. Instead, something heavier settled in her chest. Something more final than sorrow. It was the kind of quiet heartbreak that doesn't wail, it simply lives inside the bones and keeps growing. She folded the paper slowly, placed it back in the envelope, and stared out the kitchen window. The trees swayed gently, the same as they had yesterday, but nothing felt the same now. That evening, the house smelled faintly of rosemary and garlic. Mary moved slowly in the kitchen, her fingers aching as she chopped vegetables for a stew. She wasn't even hungry for it. The radio played softly in the background, some old tune from the 60s that used to make her hum while she cooked. But tonight, there was no music in her heart, only silence that pressed against her ribs. She heard the door creak open and Michael's voice call out, cheerful like always, "Hey Ma, you home?" His footsteps echoed down the hallway. He appeared in the kitchen a moment later, grinning, holding a small grocery bag. "Thought I'd bring you a few things. Got that bread you like?" Mary turned to face him, her expression carefully neutral. "Thank you, Michael," she said softly. Her eyes studied his face. Those same eyes that used to look up at her with childlike wonder, now looked at her with something she couldn't name. He looked so normal, so present, and yet the paper upstairs screamed otherwise. She wondered if he could see it in her face, the knowing, but she smiled gently, like she always had. Michael leaned against the counter. "You feeling okay? You looked tired last time I came over." He said it casually, but there was something in his tone, something probing. Mary wiped her hands on a towel. "I'm fine, just tired from the weather. My knees are acting up again." She sat down slowly at the kitchen table, pretending to be preoccupied with the radio's static. He moved toward the sink, filling a glass with water. "Here, drink something. You need to stay hydrated, Ma." He brought the glass over with that same familiar smile, placing it gently in front of her. She stared at the glass. A simple thing, clear, clean, harmless, but it wasn't. Not tonight. She could feel the weight behind it. Not poison, no. That wasn't Michael's way. But something worse, care had turned into control. She reached out, took the glass, then paused. Hold on, she said quietly, standing up slowly. I have a bottle in the fridge I prefer. Doctor said filtered water is better for my kidneys. Asterisk, she walked to the fridge, her hands careful, measured. Inside was her own bottle, the one she'd filled herself, the one only she touched. She opened it, poured a fresh glass, and returned to the table. Asterisk, Michael didn't blink, didn't question. He sat across from her, chatting idly about work, about traffic, about nothing that mattered. Mary nodded, smiling in the right places, sipping slowly. But inside her, something had shifted. A wall had gone up, a line drawn. Asterisk, when he left an hour later, he kissed her cheek, told her to call if she needed anything. She nodded, watching him walk down the path to his car. She waited until the engine roared to life, and the red taillights vanished down the street. Then she locked the door. Asterisk, she turned off the kitchen light and stood in the dark for a while, holding the empty glass. In the silence, her thoughts came louder, not in words, but in sensations, the ache of betrayal, the chill of fear, and the burn of something harder to name, not rage, not quite, something deeper. Asterisk, she sat by the window. As night fell, her hands resting in her lap. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, just like always, but she didn't feel safe anymore. Not in her own house. Not in her own skin. Asterisk, she thought about the past. About how she had been there for every birthday, every scraped knee, every heartbreak. About how she had once believed that love was enough to protect her from loneliness, from greed, from her own child. But love, she now saw, had been turned into a tool he used to keep her soft, to keep her blind. She wasn't blind anymore. She placed the glass in the sink, washed it slowly, and dried it with a towel. Her reflection in the window stared back at her, not just an old woman, not just someone waiting to die. Asterisk, someone still watching, still thinking, still alive. Asterisk. The morning air was crisp, the kind that clung to your skin and made old bones ache just a little more. Mary sat at the kitchen table with her robe wrapped tightly around her, a steaming cup of tea untouched in front of her. The letter she was about to write sat as a blank page before her, but her heart was already full of words. Words she never thought she'd have to say. Words she wished had never needed to be written, but they were there now, lodged in her chest like stones. Asterisk, she picked up the pen with fingers that had once braided Michael's hair, once packed his school lunches, once pressed band-aids to his scraped knees. Those same hands now trembled as she began to write, not out of weakness, but out of something far heavier, grief. A grief for the child she had raised, the man he had become, and the bridge between them that had silently collapsed. Asterisk, Michael. Asterisk, you were the first light I ever saw outside of your father. I carried you inside me with hope. I raised you with the kind of love that makes a woman forget herself. You were my world, my reason. And maybe that was my mistake, to love so fully that I forgot I had to protect myself too. Asterisk, I never thought I would live to see the day I feared my own son. Not because of what you might do, but because of what you already did. That policy you took out on me, I know. And it wasn't the paper that hurt me, Michael, it was the way you looked at me afterward, still smiling, still calling me Ma, as though nothing had shifted. Asterisk, you didn't even ask, you didn't come to me and say, I'm worried, let me do this for your safety. No, you did it in silence, like a man planning for the weather. And suddenly, my life, my breath, my heart, my remaining days were worth a dollar figure in your eyes. Asterisk, I don't know what happened to the boy I raised, the boy who used to cry when his goldfish died, the boy who begged me to read just one more story before bed. I have searched for him in your voice, in your eyes, in your touch, but he's gone. Asterisk, I'm not writing this to shame you. I'm writing this because I finally see what I refused to believe, that I have become a means to an end for you, and I cannot let that be the last chapter of my life. Asterisk, I'm not angry, Michael, I'm done. Asterisk, I will be taking steps to protect what little I have left, my peace, my safety, my choices. You may never understand this, but I hope one day you will look back and see what you lost. Not the money, not the policy, but the kind of mother who would have walked barefoot across fire for you, without ever asking why. Asterisks, don't come by next week. I need time. I need space. I need silence. Mom, she folded the letter carefully, each crease pressed with a finality that made her hand shake. She slipped it into an envelope and addressed it in her familiar, looping handwriting. Her eyes were wet, but no tears fell. The crying had already happened, silently, in the days leading up to this moment. Asterisk Mary walked to the mailbox with slow, deliberate steps. The wind picked up, brushing silver strands of hair across her cheeks. She opened the mailbox, slid the letter inside, and closed the lid with a soft, decisive click. Asterisk as she stood there, alone in the quiet suburban street, she felt something unexpected. Not relief, not satisfaction, but stillness. A kind of stillness she hadn't felt in years. The stillness of letting go, of not begging to be loved properly anymore, of finally choosing herself after a lifetime of choosing everyone else. Asterisk she turned back toward the house, toward the life she had built and now reclaimed, one quiet breath at a time. Inside, the kettle whistled, the curtains danced in the breeze, and Mary, for the first time in a long while, did not feel afraid.